Mario Kart World looks phenomenal, but there's one major fear that a lot of people online are having, myself included, and that fear stems from the in-between tracks. You don't know what I mean? The whole gimmick of Mario Kart World is the fact that it's one giant interconnected world, and all the tracks are within this world that you actually drive to, which acts as part of the race itself. But the problem is that drive from one track to the next is pretty boring right now. From what we've seen so far from the treehouse and even the trailer itself, these drives are just straightaways, where you're just kind of driving down a highway, dodging traffic, and for the most part, there's not a lot going on here. And with 24 racers, a lot of the racers are stuck in the back of the pack with really no way to catch up because there's no shortcuts or loops or really anything besides a straight path. With just a couple of boost pads and ramps from the nearby cars, there's not a lot to be excited about with these straightaways. But a lot of people are really fearing that this is going to be a bad thing. But let me explain to you today why I think this is going to be actually a lot better than we think and why we shouldn't worry quite yet. Before we dive into why I say this, I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Over 700 of you subscribed the other day. Like seriously, almost 800 total, which is insane. We are super close to our goal of 350,000 subscribers, so if you enjoyed the video, let's see if we can reach that same amount of subscribers or even more in today's video alone. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's dive into why I believe Mario Kart World is going to be better than we think originally. So yes, the main problem is these in-between tracks are just way too straight with not a lot going on besides a couple of ramps and some boost pads. And the other really big problem is the third lap of these races are literally just one lap around the actual track once we get there, not allowing us to spend more time on the tracks themselves, which seems to be a big issue right now. But I'm here to say we shouldn't worry too much. First things first, I'm pretty sure Nintendo will have some type of separate mode where we can actually turn off these in-between tracks. Well, at least I hope. For instance, if we just want to play a couple of versus races, I'm pretty sure they'll allow us just to play the tracks themselves and just go around them like 3 normal laps like we've been doing with the past Mario Kart games, like literally every other game in the series. I can't see how Nintendo would just make us race on these long paths in between each track and really not to spend that much time on each individual track since we only have 1 lap on them. It would kind of take away from the fact that there's 30 confirmed tracks in this game. So what's the point of even having tracks if we only race on them 1 lap? So I'm pretty sure Nintendo will have some type of toggle in order to turn this on and off. At least I really hope so. In fact, there's actually an option. It looks like we can turn off the intermission, which could be the intermission tracks. For instance, in the Knockout Tour, it's not even highlighted for us to mess with, probably because of the fact that it's Knockout Tour. You need those intermission tracks. It needs to have those long tracks because it has to knock out a certain amount of players after like 6 laps. So I get why it's off here, which kind of makes me feel like they are definitely going to have that option to be toggled on or off with the regular cups. So yeah, that makes me a little bit less worried. People's main problem stems from the fact that it's this that we're worried about. I will say, it's strange that Nintendo had 2 whole treehouse segments to talk about this game, and they actually talked about it in 5 different segments, but somehow they didn't show us a single time, you know, the tracks just simply being played like tracks instead of these in-between tracks being added to it. They really wanted to show this off for some reason, and if they wanted to show it off so much, how come there wasn't much more to it, right? Yeah, I completely agree. They need to add some flair to this and add some things to these long tracks in order for them to be, you know, entertaining, because they're just dead straight. What if I told you Nintendo could very well be hiding something from us that we just don't see right now? One thing I noticed is that the tracks seem to be missing some things. From what I've seen with that reveal trailer, there was a couple things that made me say, okay, where was this at? Because we've seen some really crazy, wacky things on the race that the treehouse didn't show at all. For instance, let's take this scene of Birdo driving into the back of this giant semi, and the inside of the semi seems to have some type of weird, warpy colors going in it, almost as if it's some type of weird alternate universe it flings you into before you get into the truck. You're not just driving into a semi. This to me was one of the coolest parts of the trailer and made me say, oh my gosh, they are going to be doing some wacky things. But for some reason, this was one of the only few things that we've seen. They immediately after this just go to the costume thing. But what is this exactly? And how come we haven't seen a single thing like this within the actual treehouse? I think Nintendo is purposely hiding things like this, and they've removed anything like this probably from the demos or anything in a treehouse event, because maybe there's multiple things that we get to actually interact with on these long straightaways. Maybe these straightaways are not just long drives, but they're also where all the wackiness can happen, because once you get onto the actual track, it's more of just an actual Mario Kart race. But during these straightaways, you'll run into lots of crazy things like this. There is no way in the world you're telling me that this semi is the only crazy thing like this added to the game. game. I mean, the fact that there's even physics of the guardrail knocking out the way when Birdo actually runs into it with the semi makes me believe that there's going to be other types of crazy vehicles on the sides of the road and stuff that you could interact with. And if this is how the Mario Kart races will go with these long straightaways, I could see them adding so many crazy things and vehicles to the tracks for you to interact with. Maybe there's like little cannons that you can interact with and shoot other players, or special items in certain paths that you can actually pick up that's not part of the main item set. Just different things to have a wackier, crazier race. Maybe there's abilities that make you even get out the car and fly or run really fast on your feet or something. I'm just trying to think of crazy things like this truck, because like I said, the back of that truck being in this weird warpy zone makes me believe that there could be other mechanics with other things that we haven't seen yet. And this is like the only thing that they actually showed us. Plus, if you look closely, it maybe looks like the back could be one giant big question mark that you go into, kind of like a giant item box. So maybe there's a bunch of vehicles or different things like this littered around the map that we just haven't seen. I mean, even throughout the tree houses, I seen one instance of the actual player passing a semi that looked like this, but it was going the other direction, and I haven't seen one person use it yet. Some of these straightaway roads looked actually really busy. Take this bridge shot for instance. It is littered with car traffic. There's cars with ramps that you can boost onto. There's also cars with giant bob-ombs headed the opposite direction. Bonsai bills being blasted down the lanes. Not to mention one cart that literally has a DK barrel on it, which looks like it'll probably blast you forward, maybe even put you into glider form. Another big problem right now is I think that the Nintendo Treehouse gang, and even the people that are able to play this game early right now from the demo kiosk, are only allowed to play it in like 100cc. I think Nintendo makes them use the steering antenna, which prevents them from, pretty much going off of the beaten path. So it's really hard to see how fast-paced and action-packed this could actually be at the moment. And I feel like it'll be a lot better at 150cc, 200cc, maybe there's even faster ones like 250 or 300cc, which would really make these races interesting, a lot better. Even with all of that missing, no specific gimmick right now like the semis and the fact that they're driving pretty slow, it still looks like some of those tracks are pretty interesting. We just haven't seen some of them. There's a couple of haunted ones with some cool pathways. There's a lot of stuff happening on some of the tracks as well. This game seems to be pulling from a lot of enemies in Mario's past. You'll see Typhus trying to blow you off the path, bullies and charging chucks trying to run into you, or floating platforms with hammer bros, ice bros, or even fire bros tossing projectiles on into the map. And there's all types of enemies that come from that as well that you'll just run into while you're on the track, which does make the variety a little unique. Take this section for instance. You're drifting on the beach before running to a couple cataquacks that are trying to knock you over. Then puts you on the water, where you have to dodge giant dragon nails that are dropping in and out of the water, and you have to go underneath it or over it. Shortly after, it takes you to a section of broken ship parts, where you'll actually fly over a giant whirlpool in the center. It almost looks like something should be sticking out of that whirlpool, and I would be very shocked if there wasn't. I mean, come on. You're telling me Gooper Blooper's not going to be sticking out of the middle of that thing? You can even see two piles of coins on the left and right sides where it almost looks like you'll fly around something, or maybe at least some tentacles would stick up or something. There's definitely something going on here, and it's just not being playable right now. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe it's just a giant whirlpool and there's nothing, but it just looks too obvious to me. Or at least maybe some type of story mode tie-in where you'll have to fight something over here, because what is causing this whirlpool in the first place? Another reason I'm very optimistic is the fact that we learned from Nintendo in recent years that they hide a lot of stuff with their trailers. I mean, remember the first Mario Odyssey reveal? We thought it was an amazing looking game, and we didn't even know about the capture mechanic, which is in turn the biggest mechanic of the entire game, and we wouldn't get that shown to us until the second trailer around E3 time. Shoot, Nintendo didn't even tell us anything about the depths, which was a huge second map underneath the first map in Tears of the Kingdom. They literally didn't show really anything within the trailers, maybe a couple super small scenes that we could barely tell what was happening, but it was a huge shock for a lot of gamers when the first time they dove into one of those caves, they found a whole second map underground. The main difference here is those games weren't $80. At least Tears of the Kingdom was $70, but yeah, $80 means they gotta show us something, because if they want us to pay for this game, they gotta show us why we're paying $80. But also, I still have good news for that. Doug Bowser, the president of Nintendo of America, actually talks about Mario Kart and states, What you see right there is variable pricing. We'll look at each game, really look at the development that's gone into the game, the breadth and the depth of the gameplay, if you will, the durability over time, and the repeatability of gameplay experiences. Those are all factors, and there's many more that go into consideration of what is the right price point for the game. So I think you can anticipate that there will be variable pricing, and we haven't set a benchmark, so pretty much saying that this game is going to be worth its $80, but goes on further to explain why, because according to the Vice President of America, being Bill Trinen, he states the experience, content, and value justify the $80 price point for Mario Kart World. Mario Kart World, I think, especially as you see from the Nintendo Direct, to give you any hints or anything, but I did read your article this morning, and I think you had mentioned that you didn't find a lot to discover when roaming around, when talking to IGN. He also states, so I would stay tuned until our Mario Kart Direct to see what maybe you'll be able to find out about that. So it does in fact sound like Nintendo knows that the open world seems a little empty right now, and they're probably knowing that some people have some complaints with this straightaway driving, that it just seems like there's some stuff missing. And of course, if they already showed us everything that we've seen so far, I can only imagine what's left to see at a Nintendo Direct. And the fact that they announced this thing within the same trailer makes me believe there's a lot left. Maybe even a story mode, some additional stuff to do in free roam, and yes, some more things to do on those long straightaway drives. At least that's what I'm expecting. But let me know in the comments down below what you think. Are we just going to have boring straightaway drives in between each track, or are they actually going to amp it up and have a lot of things to look forward to with those drives as well? We're going to have to see, because it's only going to be a couple of weeks until we get to see this Nintendo Direct, so I can't wait to see what Nintendo's actually fully cooking with this game. But thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe before you head out, and like always, I'll see you all on the next one. See ya, guys.